Lana Mercer thought she had married the perfect man. Grayson Mercer made her feel like the center of his world, until their honeymoon revealed a truth more horrifying than she could have ever imagined. What was supposed to be a romantic getaway quickly unraveled into a nightmare of secrets, deception, and a betrayal so deep it would change her life forever. Lana Mercer had always believed in fairy tales. Growing up, she had imagined her wedding day as the moment her life would truly begin, and when she met Grayson, it felt as though fate had finally delivered her prince. He was everything she had ever wanted, charming, successful, and utterly devoted. Their love story unfolded quickly, a whirlwind of romance that swept her off her feet. Within a year they were engaged, and soon after they stood at the altar, promising forever. The honeymoon was meant to be the perfect beginning to their new life together. The island resort was breathtaking, a secluded paradise with pristine beaches and crystal clear waters. The moment they arrived, resort staff greeted them with warm smiles, handing them champagne as they were led to their private villa. The room was perfect, an oceanfront suite with floor-to-ceiling windows that bathed the space in golden sunlight. Everything felt surreal, like stepping into the pages of a glossy travel magazine. Lana couldn't help but feel lucky. She had married the man of her dreams, and now they were in paradise. She held Grayson's hand as they stood on the balcony, watching the waves crash against the shore. He looked at her with that same intense gaze that had made her fall for him in the first place. "To us," he said, raising his glass, "the first few days were blissful. They spent hours by the pool, indulged in couples massages, and explored the island's hidden coves. Every evening, they dined under the stars, sipping wine and talking about their future." Lana felt completely at ease, convinced that she had found her forever. But then, little things began to gnaw at her. At first, they were easy to ignore. Grayson seemed distracted, checking his phone more often than usual. He took calls late at night, stepping out onto the balcony where he thought she wouldn't notice. When she asked, he brushed it off as work, something he needed to handle before they returned home. Lana wanted to believe him, so she did. It wasn't until the third day that she stumbled upon something she couldn't explain. While Grayson was in the shower, she looked for the room key in his suitcase and found something unexpected. A second phone, tucked inside a pair of folded jeans. Her stomach twisted. Why would he have another phone? Hesitation warred with curiosity, but before she could investigate further, the water shut off and she quickly put everything back. That night, her mind raced. She reminded herself that Grayson had always been a private person, that there was probably a logical explanation. Yet the unease settled deep in her chest, refusing to leave. The next morning, another detail struck her as odd. A receipt from the resort's gift shop lay on the nightstand with a name she didn't recognize. Celeste Harper. Lana frowned, trying to recall if they had met anyone by that name. The purchase was from the previous afternoon, during the time Grayson had told her he was meeting with a resort concierge to plan a surprise outing. A sinking feeling washed over her. She told herself not to jump to conclusions. Maybe there had been a mix-up. Maybe it was someone else's receipt. But as she glanced at Grayson, who sat on the edge of the bed scrolling through his phone, doubt crept in. Something wasn't right. By the time the sun dipped below the horizon that evening, Lana's paradise felt different. The air was thick with unspoken questions. She wanted to believe that she was overthinking, that she was simply adjusting to married life and all the small uncertainties that came with it, but deep down she couldn't shake the feeling that her perfect honeymoon was hiding something sinister. Lana's thoughts became a storm she couldn't escape. No matter how much she tried to convince herself that she was imagining things, the unease only grew stronger. She kept replaying the moment she found the second phone, the name on the receipt, and the way Grayson had been acting since they arrived. It was unlike him. At least, unlike the version of him she thought she knew. That evening, as they got ready for dinner, she stole glances at him in the mirror. He was buttoning up his crisp white shirt, effortlessly charming as always. To anyone else, he looked like a devoted husband on the perfect honeymoon. But now, Lana saw something different. There was a carefulness in his movements, a guardedness in the way he spoke. It was as if he was hiding in plain sight. She decided to push the thoughts aside, at least for the night. They walked hand in hand to the restaurant, where a candlelit table awaited them on the beach. The waves rolled gently onto the shore, the scent of salt lingering in the warm air. Grayson ordered a bottle of wine, smiling at her the way he always did. For a moment, she almost let herself believe everything was fine. But then, as she reached for her napkin, she caught sight of something over Grayson's shoulder. A woman sitting alone at a nearby table. She wasn't looking their way, but something about her presence sent a shiver down Lana's spine. Dark hair, delicate features, and an air of quiet confidence. Lana wasn't sure why she noticed her. Maybe it was the way she was just close enough to overhear their conversation, or the fact that she seemed entirely focused on her phone, barely touching her drink. The more Lana looked, the more she felt an inexplicable pull of familiarity, as if she had seen this woman before. And then it clicked. Celeste Harper. The name from the receipt. A strange panic gripped her. Was this a coincidence, or had Grayson lied to her about where he had been that afternoon? Lana turned her attention back to him, her mind racing. Should she ask him about her? Should she act like she hadn't noticed anything? She decided to stay quiet, for now. But her heart pounded in her chest, and suddenly the wine tasted bitter. The rest of the night passed in a blur. Grayson was affectionate, laughing easily, but Lana wasn't really listening. Every time she glanced around, Celeste was still there, lingering in the background. Eventually, she left, disappearing into the night, but her presence remained imprinted in Lana's mind. When they returned to the villa, Grayson excused himself to take another call. Lana watched as he stepped onto the balcony, phone in hand, his voice low and urgent. Her pulse quickened. Was it work? Or was it something else? She couldn't ignore it any longer. The second phone, the woman at dinner, the way Grayson had been acting, she needed to know the truth. With her hands trembling, she moved quickly to his suitcase. Her heart pounded as she retrieved the hidden phone, the sleek device feeling ice-cold in her grasp. Taking a deep breath, she turned it on. The screen illuminated, revealing a string of unread messages, and every single one was from Celeste. Lana scrolled through them, each message tightening the knot in her stomach. They weren't just casual exchanges, they were intimate, filled with familiarity and urgency. Some messages were from days ago, others from just hours earlier, while they had been at dinner. Her breath caught when she saw one message in particular. Does she suspect anything? Lana felt her entire world tilt. She had come here expecting a perfect honeymoon, a celebration of love and commitment. Instead, she had walked straight into a lie. And worse, she wasn't sure just how deep the deception went. Lana barely slept that night. Every time she closed her eyes, the words on the screen flashed in her mind. Does she suspect anything? It wasn't just an affair. It was a secret Grayson was actively keeping from her, something he was hiding in plain sight. The thought made her stomach turn. She lay still, listening to the steady rhythm of his breathing beside her. He had no idea what she had seen. He had come back from his call, kissed her goodnight, and fallen asleep as if nothing was wrong. As if he wasn't betraying her in ways she didn't yet fully understand. By morning, she had made a decision. She wouldn't confront him, not yet. If he was lying to her, she needed to know how deep the deception went. Instead, she would act normal, play along. Over breakfast, she smiled when he spoke, nodded at all the right moments, and pretended she didn't notice when he glanced at his phone under the table. He was careful, but not careful enough. She saw the way his jaw tensed when he read a message, the way he tucked the phone away quickly, as if afraid she might notice. Lana needed to see her up close. She needed to see Celeste Harper with her own eyes, to confirm what she already knew deep down. If Grayson was keeping secrets, then she would uncover them herself. She spent the day scanning the resort, searching for the woman she had seen at dinner. Hours passed, and just when she began to think she had imagined her, she spotted her near the pool. Celeste sat alone, legs crossed, sunglasses perched on her nose, sipping something cold. She looked effortlessly at ease, as if she belonged here. Lana kept her distance, observing. Celeste never looked in her direction, never acknowledged her presence. But then something strange happened. As Celeste stood to leave, she pulled out her phone and sent a message. Seconds later, across the resort, Grayson's phone vibrated. Lana's stomach clenched. He had told her he was going back to the room to take a nap, but now as she turned, she saw him across the terrace, standing in the shade of a palm tree, phone in hand. He wasn't asleep. He was waiting. She quickly stepped out of sight, her heart hammering. This wasn't just an affair. They were meeting, communicating right under her nose. But for what purpose? Determined to find out, she followed Celeste at a distance. She weaved through the resort, past the shops and restaurants, until she reached a secluded part of the property where the main hotel building cast long shadows over the walkways. Then she stopped. Grayson was already there, leaning against the wall, waiting. Celeste approached him without hesitation, slipping something into his hand. Lana froze. It wasn't a romantic greeting, no embrace or lingering touch. This was businesslike, calculated. She watched as they exchanged quiet words before parting ways, moving in opposite directions as if nothing had happened. But Lana had seen enough. Whatever this was, it wasn't just a simple affair. There was something much more sinister at play. Her fingers tightened into fists. She wasn't going to sit back and be deceived. She needed to know the full truth, no matter how devastating it might be. And if Grayson thought she was clueless, he was about to realize just how wrong he was. Lana couldn't ignore the truth any longer. Grayson and Celeste weren't just having an affair. They were hiding something much bigger. The secret meetings, the second phone, the cryptic messages. It wasn't just deception. It was a plan. A calculated, well-rehearsed operation happening right under her nose. She needed proof, real, undeniable proof, something she could use against them. If she confronted Grayson too soon, he would twist the truth, gaslight her into thinking she was paranoid. But if she waited too long, she might lose her chance to uncover the full scope of what was happening. That night, she pretended to be exhausted and went to bed early, waiting for the moment Grayson would make his move. It didn't take long. He slipped out of bed, moving with the careful quiet of someone who didn't want to be heard. She kept her breathing steady, eyes barely open, watching as he grabbed his phone and stepped onto the balcony. As soon as the glass door slid shut, Lana moved quickly. She reached for his suitcase, hand steady this time, no longer hesitating. She searched through his belongings, checking every pocket, every compartment. Nothing seemed out of place until she found the folder. It was hidden beneath his clothes, a thin, worn folder that looked out of place among his neatly packed items. Her pulse pounded as she flipped it open. Inside were documents. Bank statements, property transfers, identification cards. But what sent ice through her veins were the names. Not just Grayson Mercer, but another, Celeste Harper, and another. A name she had never seen before, but the date beside it made her blood run cold. 2 years ago, right around the time Grayson had first come into her life. Lana's hand shook as she flipped through the pages, realization dawning like a slow-moving nightmare. These weren't just random documents. They were records, a trail of deception leading back years. Different names, different identities, This was a pattern, a scheme. She barely had time to process what she was looking at before she heard the balcony door slide open. Heart pounding, she shoved the folder back where she found it and threw herself under the covers, forcing her body to go still. Grayson moved around the room, his footsteps slow, measured. Was he checking to see if she was asleep? She kept her breathing steady, feeling his presence near the bed. After a long moment, he climbed in beside her, but she could tell he was still awake. Lana knew she couldn't do this alone. She needed help, someone who would believe her. The next morning, while Grayson was in the shower, she messaged Eva Sinclair, her best friend, someone she could trust. She kept the message vague, just enough to let Eva know something was wrong. Eva called within minutes. Lana stepped onto the balcony, gripping the phone tight as she whispered everything she had discovered. The second phone, the woman, the documents. Eva didn't hesitate. "You need to get out of there." Lana swallowed hard. She wanted to, but something told her this wasn't just about her anymore. She wasn't the first woman Grayson had done this to, and if she didn't stop him, she wouldn't be the last. She had one chance to expose him, and she was going to take it. Lana felt like she was walking on a tightrope, balancing between fear and determination. Every moment she spent beside Grayson now felt suffocating, but she couldn't let him see her unravel. She needed to be smarter, more calculated. If she made one wrong move, he would know she was on to him. The documents had given her a glimpse into a web of deception that went far beyond a simple affair. Grayson wasn't just a liar. He was living a double life. Multiple identities, financial records tied to different names, and Celeste Harper woven into all of it. Lana didn't know exactly what they were involved in, but it was criminal. That much was clear. She replayed Eva's words over and over. "You need to get out of there." It was the logical choice, but walking away meant letting him disappear. If she left without exposing him, he would slip into another identity, move on to his next target, and she couldn't let that happen. The resort was filled with people, but Lana had never felt more isolated. Everywhere she turned, she saw Grayson watching her, smiling as if nothing had changed. But now she knew the truth. Every word he spoke, every touch, every glance, it was all calculated. She had been nothing more than a piece in whatever twisted game he was playing. She needed proof, something solid. The documents were a start, but she needed to know exactly what he and Celeste were up to. She had one last chance to find out. That night, she told Grayson she wanted a romantic walk along the beach, something to make up for how distracted she had felt the past few days. He agreed easily, probably thinking she was finally settling back into their honeymoon. As they strolled along the shoreline, Lana made sure to keep up the act, laughing at his jokes, squeezing his hand like nothing had changed. But her heart was pounding for another reason. She had left her phone recording in the villa, hidden beneath her suitcase. If he contacted Celeste again, she would have proof. The walk felt endless, every second stretching unbearably long. When they finally returned to the villa, Lana excused herself to shower, locking the bathroom door behind her. Hands trembling, she retrieved her phone and stopped the recording. She pressed play. At first there was silence, then the sound of the door opening, a rustle of movement, and then Grayson's voice. "She's not suspicious anymore," he said, his tone calm, almost amused. "I told you she was easy to manage." Lana's breath hitched. Celeste's voice followed, lower but clear. "Good. We don't need another situation like before." A pause. Then Grayson spoke again. "She'll sign whatever I need. I'll have access to the account by the time we're back." Lana's blood ran cold. He had done this before. She had been nothing more than a mark, a target in whatever scheme they were running. It had never been about love. It had been about money, manipulation, control. Her body trembled with rage, but she forced herself to stay calm. Now she had evidence, not just suspicions, but undeniable proof that Grayson was conning her, and if she played this right, she could ensure he never did this to anyone else again. The next morning, she made a call to the authorities, passing along everything she had gathered. The fake identities, the financial schemes, the recording. They assured her they would act quickly. Lana spent the rest of the day pretending nothing had changed, keeping up the charade just as well as Grayson had. But when night fell, flashing red and blue lights filled the resort. Grayson never saw it coming. The moment officers entered their villa, his face twisted from confusion to shock. Celeste was taken in as well, her carefully crafted facade crumbling in an instant. As Lana watched them being led away, she felt no sadness, no regret, just relief. She had come to this island expecting a honeymoon. Instead, she had uncovered the truth about the man she married, and she had made sure he would never hurt anyone again.